Okay, so when you think of a jungle, what's the first image that sparks in your mind? For most of us, it's probably the Amazon, right? Or, maybe a really vibrant, dense tropical rainforest, all that green, the sounds. That's kind of the default picture.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what comes to mind.
But okay, let's just unpack this for a second. What if we told you there's this, well, magnificent, thriving jungle right off the coast of the UK, hidden under the waves?
Right. Not what people usually picture for the UK coast.
Exactly. And not just a small patch, but this vast, vibrant ecosystem most people have, well, absolutely no idea is even there. So today, our deep dive is all about these incredible, often overlooked kelp forests along the British coastline.
Hmm.
Now, these aren't made of trees like we normally think. Instead, they're these towering brown seaweeds. And they form some of the most productive and diverse marine habitats on the entire planet.
Really quite something.
Yeah. So our mission for you, our listener, is to explore what these underwater jungles actually are, why they're so essential, I mean, for marine life and for us humans, and importantly, what's being done to protect them, because they're facing some pretty significant threats.
It's a really surprising thought, isn't it? A hidden marine jungle, basically on our doorstep. And what's truly remarkable, I think, is the sheer scale and the efficiency, biologically speaking.
Scale? How big are we talking?
Well, these aren't just little isolated patches. They stretch from the rocky shores down in Cornwall and Devon all the way up the coast to Scotland's cooler waters. It's the really substantial natural feature,
Yay.
but it often just goes completely unnoticed.
Wow.
And the growth rate, I mean, it's just astounding.
Yeah.
Kelp, especially species like giant kelp, though we have slightly different ones here, but kelp can grow up to half a meter a day.
Half a meter, seriously.
Yeah, half a meter a day under the right conditions, ideal conditions, of course. But that incredible speed, that's what lets it form the backbone of this huge, complex ecosystem so quickly. It provides shelter, food, almost as fast as, say, a forest on land grows back after a fire.
Half a meter a day. That really puts it into perspective. It's kind of incredible to think this whole other world is just there out of sight, just beneath the surface. So when we talk about these kelp forests, what are we actually picturing physically? Could you maybe paint a bit more of a vivid picture for us? Like, what would we see if we could just dive in and explore one?
Sure, absolutely. Imagine slipping below the waves and you enter this sun-dappled, submerged world, light filtering down. These aren't just any seaweeds floating about. Off the UK coast, we mostly see species like oarweed, that's Laminaria digitata, and sugar kelp, Saccharina latissima. They're amazing organisms.
How do they, stay put
Yeah.
with all the waves and currents?
Right, good question. They anchor themselves to the seabed with this structure called a holdfast. It looks quite a bit like a tangled root system, actually. But its main job isn't absorbing nutrients from the soil like roots. It's just to grip onto rocks really tightly to stop the kelp being swept away.
Oh, okay, just a grip.
Exactly. And from that holdfast, you get these long, leathery stipe saws. You can think of them as the trunks stretching upwards, sometimes several meters high. And then at the top, they fan out into these broad, sort of undulating fronds. Those are like the leaves or the canopy of the forest.
Oh, okay, I can picture that.
Yeah, and these fronds are constantly swaying with the currents. It creates this really dynamic three-dimensional habitat. It genuinely mirrors a forest on land, but it's all underwater. It's that complex structure, that architecture that makes the jungle analogy fit so perfectly.
Right, so it's not just like a flat carpet of seaweed on the bottom. It's a proper multi-layered environment. And I guess that structure must just be teeming with life. What kind of biodiversity are we actually talking about here? What sort of creatures call these places home?
Precisely. That 3D structure is key. It fosters this incredible array of life. They really are biodiversity hotspots.
Mm.
The holdfast themselves, down at the bottom, they offer countless little crevices and dark spaces, perfect for small invertebrates. Sea snails, crabs, brittle stars, all
Yeah,
hiding.
living places.
Exactly. Then as you move up the stipes, the trunks, and into the fronds, the canopy, you find a whole different community. Lots of different fish species. Juvenile cod, pollock, they use the kelp for camouflage. Then you've got blennies and wrasse darting around amongst the blades.
Any more unusual residents?
Oh, yeah. We find really charismatic species, too, like cuttlefish, and yes, those incredibly delicate seahorses. They actually cling onto the kelp with their tails.
Wow, seahorses
Yeah.
in UK waters.
Yes, absolutely. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, these kelp forests are foundational. They act as vital nurseries. Young fish, shellfish, they can grow and mature there, protected from bigger predators. Think of it like the ultimate safe haven. and a pantry, all rolled into one.
A nursery and a restaurant?
Kind of, yeah. And it supports food webs that stretch way beyond the forest boundaries. Plus, their richness attracts larger marine mammals. Seals hunt there, sometimes dolphins. And lots of coastal birds dive for the fish living in that canopy.
So it really sounds like the absolute foundation of the coastal ecosystem, supporting this huge interconnected web of life. But hang on, the impact doesn't just stop at the waterline, does it? You mentioned they affect us on land, too.
That's right.
So what does this all mean for you listening at home, whether you're right on the coast or even further inland? First, maybe let's talk about coastal protection. That sounds pretty direct.
Yes, it's a major one.
These dense forests, they act as natural buffers, don't they?
Yeah.
They provide something called wave attenuation. Basically, their sheer mass, all those fronds and stipes swaying, they absorb and dissipate wave energy before it slams into the shore.
Exactly. It dampens the power of the waves.
Which means they significantly reduce coastal erosion. And that's a massive challenge for so many communities around the UK coast. During a big storm, that's a direct, almost tangible benefit. It protects homes, roads, infrastructure, helps keep our coastlines where they are.
It's a natural defense system.
Yeah, it's not just some nice ecological feature, it's living infrastructure. It probably saves us enormous amounts in terms of building seawalls and flood defenses.
Absolutely. And then beyond just protecting the physical shores, their role in climate change mitigation is really profound. Like forests on land, kelp forests are incredibly good at capturing and storing carbon. We call it blue carbon.
Blue carbon.
Right.
How effective are they?
Well, researchers estimate that globally, kelp forests can capture carbon at rates that are comparable to, or maybe even higher than, some types of terrestrial forests.
Yeah.
When the kelp grows, it takes CO2 out of the seawater through photosynthesis. Simple as that.
Okay. And what happens to that carbon?
Well, when bits of kelp break off or when the whole plant dies, some of it sinks down into the deep ocean or gets buried in marine sediments on the seabed. And that carbon can then be locked away, stored for potentially centuries, maybe even millennia.
Wow, locked away for that long.
Potentially, yes. So this blue carbon capacity makes them this quiet but incredibly powerful ally in the fight against climate change. They're constantly working under the waves, pulling carbon out of the system. It's a natural carbon sink doing a critical job for the planet.
So they're not just beautiful and full of life, they're actively defending our coasts and helping clean our atmosphere. That's quite a list of services. And we shouldn't forget the direct economic support either, right? You mentioned fisheries.
Yes, definitely. Healthy kelp means healthy nurseries, and that means more robust fish populations nearby, which directly translates to more stable catches, more stable livelihoods for fishing communities.
So they're like giant incubators for the fish we rely on.
In a way, yes. They really boost the health of those commercially important stocks nearby.
So summing up, kelp forests aren't just pretty underwater scenery, they are living infrastructure, supporting life above and below the waterline, touching everything from local jobs to, well, global climate health.
Exactly. However, and this is the difficult part, here's where it gets truly concerning. Despite their immense value, their natural resilience, these underwater jungles are under significant threat.
Okay. This is the worrying bit.
Yeah, it raises a really important question. Like, just how bad is the decline? And what's causing it? Our sources point to several key pressures. Rising sea temperatures, for one. Kelp likes cool water, so warming stresses them out.
Climate change impact, right there.
Directly. Then there's widespread pollution. Things like agricultural runoff from land, carrying excess nutrients that can harm kelp directly, or encourage other types of algae to bloom and smother them. Coastal development's another factor. Building marinas, ports, altering the coastline can destroy their habitat.
And fishing.
And, yes, perhaps most immediately damaging in some areas, destructive fishing methods. And look, we're not talking about minor impacts here. To give you a really stark example, down in Sussex, that region used to have these vast, dense kelp beds.
Used to.
More than 90% of that kelp disappeared during the 20th century. Over 90%. Gone.
90%, that's catastrophic.
It is. And it wasn't a slow, gradual decline. It was rapid, severe. The loss of pretty much an entire ecosystem in that area. What's particularly alarming is just how quickly these vital ecosystems can be degraded by human activity.
How does fishing do that much damage?
Well, think about bottom trawling. It's a method used to catch fish living near the seabed. The gear essentially scrapes the seafloor clean. It just rips out those vital holdfasts, the anchors we talked about. And once the holdfast is gone, the kelp is gone. It leaves behind this barren, underwater landscape.
God, that Sussex statistic is just Incredibly dire. Really sobering. Is there genuinely hope we can reverse this? Or are we looking at irreversible losses in places like that? It feels like such a huge mountain to climb.
It is a huge challenge, no doubt. It's a real wake-up call, but thankfully, it doesn't seem to be a completely lost cause everywhere.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yes, there is genuine hope. It's not too late in many areas, and actually, some really significant restoration projects are underway now. They're starting to show that targeted action can make a profound difference.
Restoration projects, like replanting kelp.
Sometimes, yes. But one fantastic initiative to highlight first is the Help Our Kelp campaign. It's a big collaborative effort spearheaded by the Sussex Wildlife Trust and other partners right in that area that suffered such huge losses.
Ah, so they're tackling that 90% loss head on.
They are, and it's a brilliant example of what can happen when you get science, policy, and community action all pulling in the same direction. It's not just about good intentions. It's about concrete, impactful steps.
Like what? What are they actually doing?
Well, a key success, a really major one, has been getting a ban on trawling implemented across 300 square kilometers of the nearshore waters off the Sussex coast.
Wow, 300 square kilometers, that's a big area.
It is. It creates this marine protection zone, specifically designed to allow the kelp to recover naturally. Without that constant disturbance from the trawling gear scraping the bottom, it really shows the power of policy, sometimes just stepping back and giving nature the space and time to heal itself.
So just stopping the damage can be enough for it to come back.
In some cases, yes, if the conditions are right and there are nearby healthy kelp beds to provide spores, but they're also exploring more active methods too. Community-led efforts for kelp replanting in certain spots, for example. Carefully transplanting healthy kelp seedlings grown in labs or taken from other areas to kind of kickstart the recovery process.
Right, giving it a helping hand.
Exactly. So it's not just about planting seaweed. It's about trying to recreate the conditions for that entire complex ecosystem to bounce back.
That's fascinating. So a mix of approaches, hands-off protection in some areas, hands-on replanting in others. What are the broader impacts then? If these restoration efforts succeed, what can we expect? How does bringing back the kelp actually translate into benefits for the wider marine environment and, well, for us?
The benefits are potentially huge and they really ripple outwards.
Yeah.
It demonstrates just how connected everything is. First off, it's about reviving entire ecosystems.
Yeah.
You bring back the kelp, you bring back the habitat for those hundreds of species we talked about earlier.
Right, the fish, the crabs, the seahorses.
Exactly. From the tiniest invertebrates hiding in the holdfasts right up to the larger fish, the crabs, the lobsters, even attracting back the marine mammals. It boosts biodiversity across the board, makes the whole marine environment more robust, more resilient.
And the fisheries.
Well, you restore the kelp, you restore the nurseries, the feeding grounds, the shelter. That directly strengthens fish stocks, both commercial and recreational ones, which in turn obviously benefits those coastal communities who depend on a healthy marine environment for their livelihoods.
Makes sense. More fish, better fishing.
Pretty much. And critically, thinking longer term, it's also about building resilience against climate change. Restored kelp forests mean continued, enhanced carbon capture, that blue carbon sink we discussed, and they provide better ongoing coastal protection as they grow denser.
So it tackles multiple problems at once.
It really does.
Yeah.
What's particularly inspiring, I think, is seeing how a targeted effort to restore just one fundamental component, these amazing kelp forests, can trigger such broad positive changes. Across environmental, social, and economic spheres, it can create this wonderful virtuous cycle of recovery.
That is a truly inspiring thought, that such a focused effort can create such wide-ranging benefits. Restoring not just seaweed, but the health and resilience of our coasts, our communities, maybe even helping the planet a bit. So wrapping up then, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Say the next time you're walking along one of Britain's beautiful coastlines.
Well, the next time you're on a beach and maybe you see a strand of kelp washed ashore. Something that seems quite mundane, just seaweed debris. Take a moment. Don't just see it as rubbish.
See it differently.
Yeah. Remember that it's actually part of a vast hidden forest just beneath the waves.
No.
A really complex, vital ecosystem. One that supports so much life and provides all these essential services to us, protecting our shores, fighting climate change. It's a forest that really deserves the same awe, the same respect, and definitely the same protection as the rainforest we picture on land.
A hidden forest deserving the same awe. That's a powerful thought to end on.
It does encourage a deeper curiosity, doesn't it? About this unseen natural world that's all around us, even in places we think we know so well, just offshore.